Like many physicians, I had pretty much achieved what I had set out to do. I had a great job. I had a family that was healthy and a great wife, and all the stuff that kind of I had dreamed of, I had achieved. And I began to wonder that if I couldn't figure out how to get more joy and fulfillment out of life when it was this good, how was I ever going to really deal with any adversity when I knew it would inevitably come?
Paging Dr. Cook. Paging Dr. Cook. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR.
Welcome to the Prescription for Success podcast with your host, Dr. Randy Cook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prescription for Success. I'm Dr. Randy Cook, your host for the podcast, which is a production of MD Coaches, providing leadership and executive coaching for physicians by physicians. To overcome burnout, transition your career, develop as a leader, or whatever your goal might be, visit MD Coaches on the web at mymdcoaches.com because you're not in this alone. And don't forget that CME credit is available when you listen with us. Just look for CMify in the show notes to learn how. My guest today has been with us before, and we have asked him to join us again for an update on his mission to not only survive, but to thrive in a truly demanding profession. So let's hear my most recent conversation with Dr. Sanj Katyal. I'm really looking forward to continuing my conversation today with Dr. Sanj Katyal, who we talked to, it's been 3 years ago, if you can believe that, Sanj. So it's good to have you back, and thanks for coming back to see us.
Oh, it's great to be back. Yeah, it's hard to believe. It's been 3 years already.
Well, I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I was so fascinated with what we spoke about in the past, way back 3 years ago. I remember being really surprised that a radiologist would ever have an interest in a subject such as this, but yet you do. And maybe we'll talk a little bit today about how you came to be involved in this sort of discipline and particularly rapid transformational therapy. So why don't we sort of begin with that? How does a radiologist find that intersection between positive psychology and medical practice?
Yeah, it's a interesting thing for me to think back on how it evolved as well. I was in charge of a large radiology group of about 100 radiologists for a private radiology startup. And I did that for about 10 years, and I would travel to various hospitals in different states, meeting with physician leaders and C-suite folks. And probably around 2011 or so, I began noticing, wherever I went, there was just a lot of discontent among the physicians. It didn't really matter what specialty they were in or what state they were in. There was just a growing unhappiness. And I remember, pretty clearly driving home from one of these hospitals, thinking about my own life. Like many physicians, I had pretty much achieved what I had set out to do. I had a great job. I had a family that was healthy and a great wife, and all the stuff that kind of I had dreamed of, I had achieved. And I began to wonder that if I couldn't figure out how to get more joy and fulfillment out of life when it was this good, how was I ever going to really deal with any adversity when I knew it would inevitably come? That search kind of led me to positive psychology, or the science of happiness, because I wanted to figure out what it means to kind of live a fulfilled, flourishing life. And
well, now, can I interrupt you just for a moment there?
Sure.
Were you actually experiencing that sense of emptiness or lack of purpose or whatever you might like to call it, or was it something that you were just seeing in your colleagues?
I was seeing it mainly in my colleagues, but I was also thinking about, I was also experiencing it to the sense where, is this it? Like, I've gotten
Mhm.
pretty much where I wanted to go. Is this all that there is? And is this the level of satisfaction and joy that I'm going to feel? Because if it is, it didn't seem like it was enough compared to
Mhm.
what I had. And so that's kind of what drew me to, searching. And I was really kind of searching for an answer to a single question. How can I learn not just to function, but to actually flourish? And that's the pretty much the goal of the entire field of positive psychology, which I became certified in, and then began kind of teaching. I teach a college class called The Science of Happiness, and kind of lecture and work with physicians on physician well-being and fulfillment for many, many years.
So it sounds like you thought at that point that perhaps you needed some additional education, and I'm gathering you did some reading and actually attended some courses to try to figure out if there was really something to it. Is that basically the way it unfolded?
Yeah, I read a book called Happier, written by a guy named Tal Ben-Shahar.
It's a good
And
start.
yeah, and so he's a Harvard psychologist. His claim to fame is he taught the largest class ever at Harvard. It was like 1,500 students in this positive psychology class.
Yeah.
And I just emailed him and I said, hey, this is a great book. I'd love to be able to learn more. And he invited me to apply to a 18-month certificate program that he was running, which I did. And so I got to spend a lot of time with him. He became, one of my mentors, and it was really kind of from there that I got really involved.
And during that time when you were doing this study, trying to further educate yourself, did you have lots and lots of those so-called aha moments? Like, yeah, this is the real deal. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I've been seeing. Was that happening for you?
Yeah, it was. There were a couple of core principles of positive psychology that explain, I think, a large amount of the discontent that's out there, particularly in overachievers like physicians. One principle is this concept called hedonic adaptation, which basically says that we get used to everything in our lives that are constant. And so physicians are basically prone to look ahead, right? I'll be happy when I get into med school. I'll be
Yeah.
happy when I get to residency, when I become partner, when I when I retire, and the cycle never ends.
Yeah, it's a great song about that. Is that all there is?
Yeah,
Peggy Lee.
yeah, and that's hedonic adaptation. You get a little bump in your happiness when you achieve the next stage, but you quickly return to your baseline, and then you're looking for the next kind of hit, so to speak.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment, but first, I'd like to share a message from Navigate. After spending years in the financial sector, Navigate has met lots of clients with all kinds of student loan issues. They were confused, they were overwhelmed by the doublespeak and the overly complex forms, and especially the deliberately misleading statements from loan servicer representatives. Navigate recognized the chaos in the student loan industry and immediately brought clarity and real solutions. If you'd like to flip the script on student debt, visit www.flipthescript.loan/MD-coaches to schedule a call with Navigate. They'll tailor a plan specifically for your unique situation and work with you until the loan is paid off. What do you have to lose besides the stress of student loan debt?
Hi, I'm Rhonda Crow, founder and CEO for MD Coaches. Here on RX for Success, we interview a lot of great medical professionals on how they grew their careers, how they overcame challenges, and how they handle day-to-day work. I really hope you're getting a lot of great information. But if you're looking for an answer to a specific problem, management or administration challenge, or if you're feeling just a bit burnt out, like maybe you chose the wrong career, well, then there's a faster way to get the help you need. No, it's not counseling, it's coaching. RX for Success is produced by MD Coaches, a team of physicians who have been where you are. I know you're used to going it alone, but you don't have to. Get the support you need today. Visit us at mymdcoaches.com to schedule your complimentary consultation. Again, that's mymdcoaches.com, because you're not in this alone.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment, but right now I want to tell you a little bit about Physician Outlook. If you haven't discovered this remarkable magazine, please do so very soon. It was created by physicians for physicians to showcase the intersection between clinical and non-clinical interests, whether it's writing, painting, cooking, politics, and dozens of other topics. Physician Outlook gives a physician perspective. It's available online and in print. It's really unique among physician lifestyle magazines. And like the Prescription for Success podcast, Physician Outlook amplifies the voice of any physician who has something to say. It also engages patients who still believe in physician-led, team-based care. And Prescription for Success listeners can get 3 months free when you enter our promo code RX for Success and select the monthly option at checkout. That's a really great deal on this stunning publication. And now let's get back to today's interview. And is that the point where you make some changes, make some adjustments in your own life to make things better for you?
Yeah. Probably the biggest realization was nothing external to me is going to bring me lasting satisfaction and fulfillment. It really is an inside job. So that was the one thing that kind of led to a little bit, actually a lot more, just peace and contentment.
Yeah, you started working on yourself, and lo and behold, it sounds like you had some success. Were you surprised? Was it better than you thought? What was your state of mind as you began to explore that side of your brain that you'd never really paid much attention to before?
I became kind of angry that we weren't taught this earlier in grade school. Like, just the principle of hedonic adaptation by itself is something that should be taught to kids. The entire equation of go become successful and then you can relax and be happy is completely backwards, right? It's the happy people that are more successful. So I became initially a little bit despondent that there was nobody teaching this stuff when we really needed it. I had basically spent 40 years without any of this knowledge, kind of thing. But then I just said, well, this is where I am, and maybe I wouldn't have been ready to hear it earlier in my life. And I just began sharing whatever I could with people.
There is, I think, and I'm not a scholar of these sorts of subjects, but I think there is an attitude that perhaps this kind of striving for some uncertain goal, thinking that there would be immense happiness at the end, is a product of Western civilization. And perhaps in other areas of the world where they take a different view of things, they seem to handle it better. Now, am I even close, or is that just a myth?
No, I think that's exactly spot on. It's a complete Western viewpoint that external circumstances will impact, your internal state of being, and Eastern cultures and Eastern spirituality basically dismisses that out of hand immediately. So, and positive psychology actually proves that too, because if you look at the formula for happiness, external circumstances in the absence of war or severe, trauma play a relatively minor role in your happiness levels. Only about 10 to 15% can be attributed to your circumstances.
And so this led you into a study of another discipline quite apart from radiology called rapid transformational therapy. So I'm completely in the dark about this phenomenon, and so I want you to get down to the very basics and tell and probably I think a lot of people in our audience exactly what this really means. What is rapid transformational therapy?
Sure. So when I was working with physicians and other people, there was significant progress made on identifying priorities and changing habits and understanding things that could improve their happiness levels. But there always seemed to be a limit or a wall that we would hit. And the wall was just these deep rooted patterns and beliefs and programming that always seem to kind of default the people back to their defaults, and myself included. I've been studying the mind for a long time, and was trying to understand this better when my wife, who's a mental health therapist working with kids, gave me a book called Tell Yourself a Better Lie. And it was by Marissa Peer, who's the founder of RTT, or Rapid Transformational Therapy. And this book basically, it really changed my life. She's world famous. She works with, professional soccer players, athletes, actresses all over the world. But basically, the subconscious mind is responsible for 95% of all of our thoughts and behaviors. But most of us try to use our thinking mind to make lasting change, and it usually doesn't work for long. That's why New Year's resolutions or simply willpower alone is very difficult to make any kind of change, because most of it is from this deeper programming at the subconscious level. And the way the subconscious programming is formed is we all have had experiences as kids that were unpleasant in some way. Our basic need for love and acceptance wasn't met. It could be from a friend group not being nice to you, to more serious things like, abuse and stuff like that. But our minds, in an effort to protect us and make sense of the situation, came in and formed some beliefs about ourselves and the situation around us. And there are really only three common beliefs that are formed from childhood experiences. Probably the most common one is I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not funny enough. And that's why my friends don't, include me, or that's why my parents yell at me, or whatever. The second common belief is what I want isn't available to me. So the kind of unconditional love I want, the safety I want, relationships I want, it's not available to me. And the third one, which was actually very big for me growing up as the only Indian kid in an all-white school, is I'm different and can't connect with others. And, most of us have a combination of all three of these beliefs, but these are kind of ingrained deeply and we carry these beliefs kind of like baggage or heavy anchors as we move through the world in our adulthood. And it really distorts how we see ourselves and how we see others. And consequently, it affects our entire experience of life.
So are these primarily defense mechanisms that live deep in the subconscious to help us get past disappointments?
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it like that for sure. The mind is trying to figure out, is always trying to protect us in some way and trying to figure out why things happen the way they happen. As children, we're very rarely going to blame our parents. We usually end up blaming ourselves for things that happen. And that's that in a nutshell is really the problem. These faulty beliefs become part of who we think we are, but they were really just formed from random experiences and other people's, inability to handle themselves.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like something that could be profoundly difficult to at least deal with and certainly to conquer. You clearly have done a lot of study in that territory, and I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about how is the best way for one to approach that. I'm guessing that task number one would be to admit that you have a problem.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't know what the reason, like this is basically the root cause of most anxiety or depression or addiction. All of those are just kind of, I don't want to say side effects, but basically just symptoms of a deeper underlying issue at the core. And the issues at the core of a lot of those things are this sense of unworthiness or incompleteness or unable to get what you really want in life. But most people don't think of it that way. It's only when you can, during RTT, you can access the subconscious mind through kind of a 2-minute guided meditation or hypnosis that kind of puts you into a relaxed state of kind of increased suggestibility, that you can kind of bypass the critical thinking mind a little bit and take the person back to various childhood experiences that are at the root of some of these beliefs that were formed. And that's really how it works. Is the mind will automatically go back to formative experiences under this kind of guided meditation or hypnosis, and then from there, you can the person themselves can actually make the connection between what happened in that experience and how they are dealing with things now. And so it's really understanding alone that is the key to freeing yourself of it. It's far deeper and far upstream from the symptoms and managing symptoms and trying to change behaviors. That's pretty far downstream on the path.
Do some people manage to deal with these sorts of struggles on their own? Do they have relatively healthier approaches, or are you saying that every single one of us could use a little help here?
I mean, I think every single one of us could use a little help, no matter how well adjusted. There's always some level of limiting beliefs. And the problem with limiting beliefs, no matter how innocuous they may be or they may seem, is they essentially limit our potential and limit our fulfillment ultimately in our experience of life, because they hold you back in some way. Now, for some people, they really hold you back and keep you in a state of just constant anxiety or depression. And others, they may manifest as physicians that have kind of imposter syndrome. Regardless of what they achieve, it's never enough. And they keep chasing the next achievement, the next title, and so forth. And I know a lot of those people. And the underlying belief for physicians with imposter syndrome and overachievers is a feeling of I'm not enough. I'm not enough at my core, just the way I am. So I need to grasp at whatever I can grasp at out there in the world to try to make me whole. But we all know that doesn't work.
So you are certified both in positive psychology and also positive psychology coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking that people with that kind of training are relatively rare. And it sounds like, well, first of all, am I right or am I wrong about that? And secondly, either way, how does one go about finding a helper or a mentor to deal with the very problems that you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty rare. I'm probably one of a handful of physicians that are certified in positive psychology and positive psychology coaching. And I'm also just one of a handful of physicians certified in RTT, although there is a growing number of physicians because they see the power and the impact of this, not only for themselves and their families, but also for their patients. So it's a relatively small group on both ends. As far as finding or getting involved or wanting to learn more, depending on what you're interested in, I could certainly help guide people to get more information or training if that's something they're interested in.
Well, of course, and before we go, I'm going to ask you to leave some contact information so people can, in fact, get in touch with you to help expand their search if they would like to. But the other thing I'd like to mention and give you an opportunity to talk about is that one good source that I can think of is your best-selling book, Positive Philosophy, Ancient and Modern Wisdom to Create a Flourishing Life, is out there. It's an Amazon bestseller. Would you like to give the book a little bit of a plug and tell people what they can expect inside?
Yeah, thanks. That book was actually the part of my final project in positive psychology certification, and was really encouraged to write it by that Harvard psychologist Tal Ben-Shahar. And there's a lot of positive psychology principles that have been proven. And the reason I like positive psychology is because it's evidence-based. So these things work, and they've been shown to work and been replicated in multiple different labs across the world. So there's a lot of positive psychology principles and information there that have been really effective, not only for myself, for my own family, but for a lot of the people that I've worked with. So it's a good introduction, I think, to positive psychology.
And you and your colleagues, I believe, are involved in a program called ThriveRx. You want to tell us a little bit about that and how people can benefit from it?
Yeah, that's basically taking the principles of positive psychology and putting them into an online, at your own pace course that's also been shown to significantly improve well-being among physicians. It's a course designed for physicians by physicians. Goes from the entire gamut of positive psychology, but also incorporates some business principles, some negotiation tactics, some investment principles. So physicians don't have to live paycheck to paycheck or stay in a toxic environment if they want to leave. So it's really about empowering physicians across the board, and it's been very fulfilling to do that and to put that out there.
Yeah, I bet it has. And is this pretty much the entire focus of your professional life nowadays? Are you still doing radiology? Where are you with all that?
I still do private practice radiology about half the time, and the other half of the time I work with clients for rapid transformational therapy and physicians with physician well-being. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice mix.
And do you work primarily with distance techniques like we're doing right now, or you do face-to-face consultations?
It's all online. It's just as effective online, and that way it enables me to work with people all over the world. So it's been great.
How far away in the world have you actually worked with people?
I've talked to a physician in Malaysia.
Wow.
South Africa. So it's been interesting.
So it's not just an American thing.
No.
People are facing this everywhere.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A lack of fulfillment and programming, childhood conditioning is a worldwide phenomenon for sure.
It's fascinating stuff, Sanj, and I have really enjoyed reading about it. I have not, in fact, read your book yet, but it is next on my list. I'll be doing that. And I really enjoyed having the opportunity to talk with you again. Before we go, as always, I'd like to give you an opportunity to tell people where they can find your work and where they can find you if they'd like to get in touch.
Sure. I'm on Facebook at sanjkatyal.com. My website, or at Sanj Katyal, I should say. My website is sanjkatyal.com, SANJKATYAL.com. And there's a bunch of articles and resources on that people can look to if they're interested in learning more about this stuff.
Dr. Sanj Katyal, it has been a pleasure talking to you again, and thank you so much for coming back to see us on RX for Success.
Thanks, Randy. It's always great catching up with you.
Thank you so much for listening with us today. If you enjoyed the show, you can help us reach more listeners by leaving a rating and a review, especially on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if your app doesn't have that option, just leave us an email or a voicemail through SpeakPipe at www.mymdcoaches.com/podcast. You can also help by becoming a Patreon member. That link is in the show notes, and we hope you'll also follow our companion podcast, Life-Changing Moments with Dr. Dale Waxman. Special thanks to our producer, Craig Clausen, our promotions manager, Mariana Rodabaugh, and to Ryan Jones, who created and performs our theme music. And remember, be sure to fill your prescription for success with my next episode.